Part 93. The vicious female supporting character's character collapsed after her voice was eavesdropped. Author, R.O. Jong Word. Chapter 921. Chapter 921 Understand the Trick. But before Lan Min could say anything, Huo Linyuan's voice rang out, "Mrs. Li, do you really think that Lan Min really doesn't know these things?" Sunian raised his eyebrows slightly when he heard this. And we are not fools. How could we not know this? We know this better than anyone else, but we are still standing here because we regard Li Baikan as a friend and we don't want anything to happen to our friend. But the way you are now is really chilling. In your heart, your husband's hard work is not important. Is it possible that in this situation, you only have these jealous things in your heart? If this is really the case with you, then, do you think you are worthy of your husband? Huo Linyuan finally understood this woman's tricks. Just like the last law or the cuckold thing. She always takes advantage of her own face and takes into account many things, so she said this deliberately. Generally speaking, it's actually about seeing who is shameless. Although if he risked his life, something might happen, Huo Linyuan felt that being manipulated by this woman was really uncomfortable. And isn't there a saying that a real man doesn't stick to trivial matters? Huo Linyuan also felt that as long as the final victory was achieved, wouldn't history be written by the victors? Sunian really didn't expect that the male protagonist would say such a thing. What's going on with the male protagonist? Suddenly enlightened. The two of them looked at each other like this. Sunian looked at Huo Linyuan. In her previous life, before Mo Bao became an adult, Sunian actually avoided this male protagonist. In the end, Mo Bao defeated the male protagonist. So I am really a bit inexperienced. But now it can be seen that this male protagonist is not a simple person. I really didn't expect that Miss Lan would sacrifice so much. Haha, speaking of this, I really feel sorry for Miss Lan. If that's the case, then I'll leave it to you, Miss Lan. But when it came to this, Sunian, like all villains, walked up to Lan Shi and whispered in Lan Shi's ear, "Lan Shi, after all, we have known each other for so long, I still think it is necessary to remind you. You need to pay more attention to the child in your belly. I have also been a mother, and I also know that if something happens to the child in your belly, you will really regret it for the rest of your life." After saying this, Sunian walked directly outside. Lan Min covered her stomach. "Lin Yuan," she said. But before Lan Min finished speaking, he saw Huo Linyuan's cold eyes. Such a look made Lan Min swallow all the words he had not yet finished speaking. "Are you afraid? If you are afraid, just have a good abortion. And if you really don't have the ability to protect the child in your belly, then why do you want to get involved? Originally, I thought you were a little sensible and capable. I'm even a little impressed with you, but the way you are now really disappoints me. I really don't, I'm just afraid." "What are you afraid of? What is there to be afraid of? I am not by your side. Do you have such confidence in me? Do you think that I am incompetent?" When Lan Zhen heard this, he immediately became anxious and said quickly, "I really don't think so. You really misunderstood. In my heart, Lin Yuan, you are the most powerful man in the world. I feel like if Sunian said something like this in front of you, he didn't take your words into consideration at all." Okay, don't say such nonsense, we're still doing business now." Lan Min shut up obediently. End of this chapter. The vicious female supporting character's character collapsed after her voice was eavesdropped. Author, R.O. Jong Word. Chapter 922. Chapter 922 Uncle Li, what do you mean? Lan Yan thought that as long as he could deal with Sunian, it would be fine. But she didn't expect that when she came to the board of directors of Li Group, she would understand what the dangers of society are. "You woman, How much rice have you eaten and how many roads have you walked? What school did you graduate from, and do you have any experience working on Wall Street? Can you understand the stock market? Do you know how to talk to the China Securities Regulatory Commission? I'll give you 10,000 yuan, can you make money for me in the stock market? Lan Min really has a headache. What does this have to do with the stock market? Why are these people like this? Lan Min took a deep breath, but you have known Baikan for so many years, don't you trust Baikan? Since Baikan can hand over this position to me, of course it is because of Baikan, so you are like this, don't you believe Baikan? Lan Min spoke with a decisive voice. But when Lan Min finished saying this, there were a lot of boos. The disdainful voice made Lan Min really feel a little numb. The kind that really makes you feel numb. She couldn't help but look at Li Jianhong, who was in charge. Even if Li Jianhong doesn't like himself anymore, he can't do this. After all, something happened to Li Baikan. It has a great impact on the entire company. Does Li Jianhong, an old fox, really not even know this? What do you see me doing? Li Jianhong started, but paused when he said these words. No, I should mean, it turns out that you can still see me. I thought you couldn't see me like this now, haha, it turns out your eyes are not blind. Uncle Li, what do you mean by this? Li Jianhong didn't speak this time. But the people around Li Jianhong spoke up. Don't you even understand what Director Li means? Anyway, I feel that as long as it is an individual, it can be understood. Another person also said, yes, what Director Li means is that he or he still has the final say in our company. You little girl who doesn't know anything, what do you mean by coming here? Do you really think that we are the best? Is the old guy dead? She has no ability at all. Such a woman can't even join our company as a clerk, but now she has to stand here and give orders to us old bones. This is really interesting. Hey, what does this mean? Does this mean that if you live a long time, you can encounter anything? If this is really the case, then I admit that I have gained a lot of experience, and it is quite a lot of experience. Old Qian, how can you say that? It's really a bit too much for you to say that. After all, she is just a little girl. Although what you said is true, but you are so embarrassing for a little girl, do you really think this is it appropriate? These words immediately made the audience burst into laughter. It really made Lan Min want to find a hole in the ground to crawl into. You have to know how people who can do this can be ordinary people. It took them many years to achieve such an achievement. In such a situation, how could they be more willing to succumb to a woman who relies on a man to gain power? Even if they surrender, how can they suddenly be worthy of themselves? It is worthy of all the years of struggle. This resulted in Lan Min becoming a joke in everyone's eyes. Anyway, older people like them usually have nothing to do, so they just have some fun for themselves. End of this chapter. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. The vicious female supporting character's character collapsed after her voice was eavesdropped. Author, R.O. Wich Zhang Word. Chapter 923. Chapter 923. The person who mixes everything up. After everything is over, Li Jianhong walked out of the conference room. He was stopped by Lan Min. Uncle Li, I know very well that you have objections to me, and in your heart, you think Sun Yan is good, but why don't you give me a chance? And, I really didn't do anything to make you angry. I really can't understand why you always have such a big opinion against me and what I did wrong. Li Jianhong snorted when he heard this. He is not that stupid, son. You must know that the first criterion for being a good husband is to identify the green tea bitch. If you don't even know this, how can you be a good husband? Not even qualified to be a good husband. There is something about you that is worthy of my eyes. Lan Min thought about a lot of things, but he really didn't expect Li Jianhong to say this so directly. You really have a misunderstanding about me. Did Sunian say something bad about me in front of you? Can you tell me what Sunian said in front of you? Uncle Li, you are a smart man. You should know that the current situation is very unfavorable to our company. If you really make trouble with me because of these small things, it will really affect nothing. I believe. You, Lan, is that what you call me? When Lan Min heard this, his body suddenly stiffened. She really didn't notice this. She was really too anxious. Lan Zhen, for a woman like you, the thing I regret most in my life is giving birth to a son who is stupid and has no good eyesight at all, haha. Li Jianhong didn't want to continue talking. Just passed by Lan Min. After all, saying this in front of Lan Min is a complete waste of time. Lan Min really started to panic. Can this opportunity just slip away in your own hands? Can't miss this opportunity. So Lan Min thought of Lin Na. Just like that, Lan Min appeared in front of Lin Na within half an hour. Lin Na, I know you have always regarded me as a chess piece in your hands, but I think if I, as a chess piece, get better resources and climb higher, your current situation will be better. But after hearing this, Lin Na showed no expression. Instead, she walked to the water dispenser easily, poured herself a glass of water, then returned to Lan Min, and handed the water in her hand to her. Hey, why are you so anxious? If you have anything to say, why don't you say it properly? Such impatience is really not good for you. Lin Na, don't you know? It's almost time to get ready, and you still look so calm. You haven't always looked like a smart person. Since you are so smart, why are you like this? Is it useful for me to be anxious? Is it useful to be anxious now? You think I am anxious? I am just like you. When I hear your words, I jump to the point of jumping. Do you think it is useful for me to be anxious? Of course there is another reason why Lin Na is not in a hurry. Then the current situation was all caused by her. At the same time, he attacked Sunian and Li Baikan. After all, Huo Linyuan was in front of him. No matter how suspicious Li Baikan and Sunian are, they cannot doubt themselves. Then you can take advantage of this opportunity to fish in troubled waters. The fact was exactly as she planned. Even better. End of this chapter. The vicious female supporting character's character collapsed after her voice was eavesdropped. Author, R.O. Wich Zhang Word. Chapter 924. Chapter 924. Aren't you tasting the consequences now? As the instigator, Lin Na naturally felt that the bigger the trouble, the better. Then tell me, what should I do to help you gain a foothold in the Li group? Just kidding. Those people usually hope that something will happen to Li Baikan, so that they can completely replace him. Now you are standing in front of them. They have been thinking about it for so long. It can even be said that they don't feel uncomfortable when they think of going crazy, so that's weird. But I finally suppressed Sunian now, is that all? Even Lan Zhen felt that Sunian was laughing at him behind his back. When he thought of this, Lan Min became anxious. And you don't know, Sunian told me to be careful about the consequences. If I really don't do anything now, then I just sit back and wait for death. I really don't want to sit back and wait for death. I really don't want it. However, when Lin Na heard this, she looked at Lan Min. Being looked at so suddenly made Lan Min really speechless. The next words surprised Lan Min even more. Because Lin Na said, aren't you tasting the consequences now? Do you really think that it's so easy to get a high position? Those directors will definitely find ways to deal with you and make you look embarrassed. After all, you represent Li Baikan now. Even by insulting you, they are insulting Li Baikan. I believe that no smart person would miss such a good opportunity. Even dealing with Lan Min requires no braining at all. However, Lin Na didn't say this. Lin Na did not say anything out loud. No matter how stupid Lan Min is, she is still a pregnant woman. Lin Na is still a little bit humane. What if saying it out really irritates Lan Min and causes Lan Min to have a miscarriage? Then it is a sin. Equals. You can block one of them, but there are too many people. And in this situation, even if something happens to you, it can't be blamed on Sunian. Hey, this Sunian is really not that smart. Now I really admire Sunian's brain, why he can always come up with these special points. Lan Min. At this time, Lan Ji thought of the eyes of those directors. He looked at her with contempt and disdain. It could even be said that he looked at her like an ant. They can't do this, they can't do this, Why can't you do this? Tell me what you have now. Hey, I understand your current mood very well, but you must know that there is a saying that if you want to wear a crown, you must bear its weight. You want the crown yourself. You have to carry that weight. Of course, if you are really afraid of death, then you can take off the crown. This is your own freedom, but there is only one chance. You choose it yourself. I hope you don't regret it. Then what should I do now? Lin Na shrugged slightly. I said this is your choice. Whatever you want to choose, just choose it. I have no right to interfere, and you think I don't know. If I really want to interfere, then if you regret it in the future, you will definitely blame me, and I will not take the blame. Lin Na knew Lan Min's temperament very clearly. Although she has never paid attention to Lan Shi, if Lan Shi really bothers her, then there is really no peace. But, without a but, who are you? Do you think you are living in a novel? Do you think you are the heroine of the novel? Do you think the world revolves around you? But when talking about this, Lin Na suddenly thought of something. There seems to be something wrong with Huo Linyuan's attitude in this matter. When she thought of this, Lin Na looked at Lan Min. I feel like something suddenly becomes interesting. End of this chapter. The vicious female supporting character's character collapsed after her voice was eavesdropped. Author, R.O. Wich Jong Word. Chapter 925. Chapter 925 Encounter on a Narrow Road. Do you know why you always suffer after facing Sunian? It's because she is ruthless and scheming. Lin Na was speechless when she heard this. You have to know that you can't be the only smart person in this world. People are smart because of their parents. It makes no sense at all for you to say this. Who asked you to reincarnate yourself? No, not only is your reincarnation bad, you also have a brain problem. If you continue to say these useless things, then I hope you can get out. My time is also very precious, and I don't have much time at all. Wasted here. These words can be said to be bloody. Let Lan Ji shut up immediately. Do you want to listen to my opinion? If you just want to scold Sunian in front of me, or even want me to scold Sunian with you through this method, if that's really what you think, then I hope you can give up this idea. I don't have that much time. That was not what I meant. Okay, if you really don't mean this, then I hope you can be quiet for a while and listen to me carefully. You understand what I mean? Lan Zhen immediately shut up. Lin Na really has a headache now. Every time she talks to this Lan person, it's like educating a child. This situation is really a waste of time, a huge waste of time. But there is no other way. Who let that woman Huo Linyuan do it? Actually, it's very simple. Sunian never has any scruples in doing things. She usually says things that we wouldn't say. You are worried about having a bad image in front of Huo Linyuan, and you are worried about what Li Baikan will think of you. But Sunian I never hesitated. And now I really feel that the reason why Li Baikan fell in love with Sunian is because Sunian is too special. This specialness is something we don't have. You have to know that men just like novelty. If I analyze it well, if we really want to win against Sunian, we have to go all out. If we can't, we will be bullied and bullied by Sunian. When Lan Min heard this, he thought of what Sunian had done during this time. It is indeed a bit excessive. Indeed. As the saying goes, when we meet in a narrow road, the brave will win. You can't be too weak. If you are so weak, then you are really likely to be bullied to death by Sunian. Lan Min, you are also a smart person. You should understand what I mean. The meaning of the words. But when Lan Zhen heard this, he frowned. Of course I know what you mean, but how could I be like Sunian? You must know that Sunian has such a good background, and Sunian has many backers. But there is nothing behind me. In this situation, what can you do for me? After hearing this, Lin Na shrugged. You have to think this way. I have told you what I can do and what I should do. How to do it depends on you. Then why don't you do it yourself? What do you want me to do? Lin Na, you can't do this. Lin Na didn't finish her words, she just looked at Lan Min lightly. Such a look really made Lan Ji feel a little panicked. Anyway, I've sorted everything out what you should do, what you want to do, it all depends on yourself. End of this chapter. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. The vicious female supporting character's character collapsed after her voice was eavesdropped. Author, R.O. Wich Jong Word. Chapter 926. Chapter 926 Mo Bao, who made me lack father's love in my previous life. And in a sense, if a person like you is really willing to go all out, then you are better and more capable than Sunian. The reason why this is like this is because you were not born well, and you are better than Sunian, a rich lady be more willing to fight. When Lan Min heard this, he subconsciously clenched his hands into fists. Lin Na. What do you mean by calling me like that? I am here to analyze the situation with you. You can't see these situations yourself. After all, if you really saw it, then you wouldn't be bullied like this by Sunian. That's right, the reason why Lin Na said this was to anger Lan Min. If Lan Zhen is really angered, according to Lan Ji's brain circuit, he may really be able to do anything. When that time comes, the show will really be good. Thinking of this, Lin Na felt really good. I know what you are worried about, but you have to think carefully. Do you want to be the woman behind Huo Linyuan, or do you want to be the woman beside Huo Linyuan, or even want to be the woman on the same level as Huo Linyuan? Lan Min bit her lip. Lin Na, is it really okay for me to do this? If you want to be the woman behind Huo Linyuan, then just stay behind Huo Linyuan's back. Why are you going to such trouble? I know what you are worried about, but you have to know that you still have Huo Linyuan's child in your belly. You are almost ready to eat. If that's the case, then what are you afraid of? What are you afraid of? Such words made Lan Min's face change. Li Baikan, who is in a coma at home, controls public opinion. He has not yet found out who is behind the scenes. I really didn't find any clues this time. But he doesn't have a clear face now. It's a little easier to operate. Li Baikan was at home and felt that everything else was fine, except that he couldn't go to Cass's house and couldn't go to Sunian at any time. Moreover, Sunian has been busy recently. Just come back in the evening. Just come back in the evening. After the key came back, she spent more time with her children. After spending time with the children, and then spending time with yourself, the time you spend with yourself is really very little. The more this happened, the more Li Baikan felt that he should find out who was the mastermind in the shortest possible time. Just when Li Baikan was busy with something, the study door was opened. Dad. Li Baikan looked towards the sound when he heard it. He then looked at Mo Bao, who was standing not far away, swaying. What's the matter, Mo Bao? When he said this, Li Baikan had a gentle smile on his face. Dad is a slacker. Lee Biken's expression suddenly changed when he said that. This brat must have gone too far. I had taught his father for so long before. Learning these things now, why do you learn so quickly? Mo Bao immediately became happy when he saw his father's face. That's right, Lai Mo Bao did it on purpose. Although Mo Bao has already made up his mind, he plans to be a good baby and grow up honestly. But Mo Bao also has an adult soul in his body, which is still very boring. Since you are bored, you have to find some fun. And his pleasure is naturally, this cheap dad in his previous life. Hey, after all, I didn't have father's love in my previous life, so I am very lacking in father's love. Since I lack father's love, of course I have to find a way to get father's love. End of this chapter. The vicious female supporting character's character collapsed after her voice was eavesdropped. Author, R.O. Which John Word. Chapter 927. Chapter 927. Sure enough, this son is here to defeat him. Dad is not lazy, Dad is just reluctant to part with Mo Bao and wants to stay with Mo Bao at home. Why, Dad is at home with Mo Bao, aren't you happy, Mo Bao? Mo Bao deliberately pretended to be serious and looked at Lee Biken carefully. This serious look really amused Lee Biken. After this period of contact, he finally understood what it means to be a small person but a big one. However, Lee Biken also felt that this time was a good opportunity. This time, you can make this brat feel attached to yourself. The more attached you are to yourself, the less attached you will be to Sunian. Thinking about this, the gentle smile on Lee Biken's face grew more and more. Immediately he stood up, walked to Mo Bao and squatted down. Mo Bao, you are so smart. Do you still remember that Dad was so busy before and had to deal with a lot of things? Mo Bao nodded seriously. I feel that Mo Bao was a bit neglected in the past. How can things at work be compared to Mo Bao, so I am at home now, playing with Mo Bao and playing with you. Really? Of course it's true. If it's not true, then why is Dad here? You must know that Ma Bao is Dad's only treasure. For Dad, nothing can be more important than Ma Bao. Father and son just looked at each other. The atmosphere is warm. But the next moment, Mo Bao burst into tears. Mo Bao cried so suddenly, Lee Biken's heart suddenly tightened. What's wrong? How can you say it well? Why is this brat crying again? This gave Lee Biken a little headache. But before Lee Biken had time to worry about his own pain, he heard Mo Bao crying, Mom doesn't like me anymore, Mom doesn't like Mo Bao anymore, I want my mother. These words made Lee Biken a little confused. This brat, what do you mean by this? What does it mean that his mother doesn't like him anymore? For Lee Biken, Mo Bao can do anything, but he cannot question his mother. Lee Biken immediately said with a stern face, Mo Bao, do you know what you mean? What does it mean that your mother doesn't like you anymore? Your mother doesn't know how much she has paid for you. Your mother can be said to be the most beloved person in the world, your person. Then if Mom loves me, why isn't she at home? I want Mom. These words really made Lee Biken feel dumbfounded. He never thought that this brat would think of this aspect. Woo woo, Dad, why do you say Mom doesn't like me anymore? Woo woo, I want Mom to like me. Lee Biken, has he ever said this? Have it? What a coincidence. Sunian just came in. Lee Biken. Mo Bao. Originally, Mo Bao just wanted to make his father worry for a while, but he didn't expect that his mother, the gentlest and most beautiful in the world, would actually come back. What is this called? Isn't this God's will? Hey, God lets this son of mine cheat his father, what can he do? When Sunian heard her son crying, she immediately became anxious and hurriedly walked to Mo Bao. What's wrong? Why are you crying so hard? Is there something uncomfortable? Mo Bao, be good, Mo Bao, tell your mother, what's wrong with you? But Mo Bao did not answer his mother's question immediately, but continued to cry. When Li Baikan saw this posture, why did he feel that he was going to die? No, it couldn't be like this. He thought he had something to say. Sunian cannot be allowed to be influenced by this brat. What Li Baikan didn't know was that Mo Bao had been waiting for this opportunity and immediately told Sunian which theory he was talking about. As expected, Li Baikan was glared at by Sunian. Li Baikan. This son is indeed here to defeat himself. End of this chapter. The vicious female supporting character's character collapsed after her voice was eavesdropped. Author, R.O. Wich Jong Word. Chapter 928. Chapter 928. The next day, Li Baikan went to Mo Bao to settle the score. You brat, are you as bad as you? Mo Bao blinked innocently. Hey, hit yourself if you can. Do you know that because of you, your mother didn't talk to me a lot last night? What do you want, Li Chenmo? Do you really think dad won't spank you? The reason why Li Baikan behaved like this was because he felt that he should change his routine. You must know that Li Baikan has always positioned himself as a gentle and loving father. But looking at the look of this brat, he felt that this path was really not suitable for him, very unsuitable for him. And seeing Sunian doting on this little guy so much, Li Baikan felt that if he continued to dote on this little guy, then it will definitely be spoiled. Li Baikan felt that he really wanted to make up for this little guy and make up for his failure to fulfill his responsibilities as a father in his previous life, but even so, he couldn't be too pampered. If everyone spoils this little guy, it will easily become spoiled. And Li Baikan didn't want his and Sunian's children to become a second-generation ancestor. If Mo Bao knew that his father thought so, he would definitely laugh. But Mo Bao didn't know. But even if Mo Bao didn't know it, he could feel something was wrong from Li Baikan's gaze at this moment. He moved his little body silently. Mo Bao, you are a smart child. You should be able to feel that your mother has been very busy recently. You are still causing trouble for your mother when she is so busy. Don't you think it is a little too much? Too much? Mo Bao sneered in his heart after hearing this. This father knows how to coax his children. It's obviously dad, you said it first. Mom doesn't like me, why do you say it's my fault, dad? It's obviously your fault, okay. That's right, Mo Bao speaks so smoothly now. You have to know that in the year before he learned to speak, he was tricked by this father countless times. Other parents don't understand what their children mean, but his father is very smart, very powerful, and understands what he means very well. Then he not only pretends not to understand, but also cheats himself, putting another meaning on one's own head. Now Mo Bao feels that many years later, if the doctor asks himself whether he should remove this father's oxygen tube, then I will definitely pull it out directly. Did dad say something similar? But again, you are too young and don't understand anything, but it doesn't matter, you are dad's only son, and dad will teach you no matter what. When Mo Bao heard this, his heart skipped a beat. What does this dad want to do? Faced with such a situation, Mo Bao felt that he must be aware of current affairs and become a hero. There is no way, with his small arms and legs, he is no match for this guy. A smile appeared on Mo Bao's face immediately. Li Baikan was really surprised at this moment. Although he knew that his son was smart, he really didn't expect that he was so smart. After all, if you were any little kid, would you be able to put a flattering smile on his face at the age of 1? Of course Li Baikan couldn't help but doubt whether he was wrong. But at this moment, Li Baikan's cell phone rang. He took out his cell phone and answered the call. But when he heard the voice on the phone, Li Baikan's expression suddenly changed. I then walked outside. But Li Baikan seemed to have thought of something after taking a few steps, and immediately returned, and then slipped Mo Baodi away. End of this chapter. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. The vicious female supporting character's character collapsed after her voice was eavesdropped. Author, R.O. Witch John Word. Chapter 929. Chapter 929, Shocked, Lee Baiken actually taught children to lie. Lee Baiken brought the calligraphy treasure to the bedroom. Then Lee Baiken looked at Mo Bao seriously and said, "Dad knows that Mo Bao is the smartest kid in the world, so when Grandpa comes, if Grandpa asks Mo Bao how Dad is, just say that Dad hasn't woken up for a long time." Mo Bao really couldn't help but want to roll his eyes. This dad is really drunk. How can a father be like this? If I didn't have the memory of my previous life, I would be just an ordinary child. At such a young age, he actually said such things. Isn't this clearly teaching yourself to lie? Mo Bao is really a little lucky now. Happily, his father died so early in his previous life. If his father was still alive in his previous life, how could he be so smart and sensible? Mo Bao, do you understand what I mean? Lee Baiken, who looked like a father, said gently. Originally, Lee Baiken wanted to give Mo Bao a few more instructions. But I heard the sound of footsteps. With no other choice, Lee Baiken had no choice but to lie down. Just when Lee Baiken lay down, the bedroom door opened. Li Jianhong walked in. When Li Jianhong saw Mo Bao, he was a little surprised. Then he walked up to Mo Bao and asked curiously, "Mo Bao, why are you here? Are you also worried about your father?" "Mo Bao, you are so good." After listening to his grandfather's words, a cute smile appeared on Mo Bao's childish face. "Grandpa, what's wrong with Dad?" After hearing this, Li Jianhong sighed deeply, then reached out and touched Mo Bao's little head. "There is nothing wrong with your dad. Your dad is just a little tired during this period, so he lies in bed to rest. Mo Bao, be good, don't worry too much, your dad will be fine." Mo Bao nodded hard after hearing this. Seeing the well-behaved Mo Bao, Li Jianhong's heart almost melted. But Mo Bao then continued, "Grandpa, is Daddy broken? It's like my toy car." Yes, Mo Bao is very smart, just like Mo Bao's toy car. Then if Dad is completely broken and can no longer be played, can we get a new one? Li Jianhong. Li Baiken lying down. That's right, Mo Bao wanted to use this opportunity to teach his father a lesson. "Humph, didn't you scare yourself so much just now? As his son, let him know what it means to have good fortune." How could Lee Baiken not realize that his son was seeking revenge on him? Is this brat a little too smart? Not only is he too smart, still very vindictive. Lee Baiken felt really helpless, but what else could Lee Baiken, a father, do? The only thing we can do is teach the son well. The well-behaved Mo Bao walked up to Li Jianhong and tugged on Li Jianhong's clothes. If Mo Bao really has to change his father, can Mo Bao choose his own father? This really made Li Jianhong not know what to say. At the same time, Li Jianhong is really curious now. What did Lee Baiken, the father, do to Mo Bao to make Mo Bao treat him like this? The key is that Mo Bao is only 1 year old. Let a 1-year-old child behave like this. Ahem. What else could Li Jianhong do? He could only express his love for his grandson. End of this chapter. The vicious female supporting character's character collapsed after her voice was eavesdropped. Author, R.O. Witch John Word. Chapter 930. Chapter 930 focuses on a childish Yanwuji. Why did Mo Bao choose his father? Did his father bully you? If your father really bullied you, then you tell Grandpa, and Grandpa will definitely help you deal with your dad. But Mo Bao still said in an innocent voice, "Grandpa, Dad didn't bully Mo Bao." Mo Bao just wanted a new father. Isn't that okay? Why not? Mo Bao is a constant toy. That's right, Mo Bao's main theme now is Tong Yanwuji. Equals. But after all, Mo Bao really admires his father. Can actually endure it until now. Think about it, how could a person who could give birth to such a smart person become an ordinary person? Dad is not a toy. Mo Bao didn't say anything, just looked at him with a simple expression. Li Jianhong suddenly laughed, and then sighed deeply. Hey, your dad has always been angry with me over the years. I tried all kinds of ways, but I didn't expect that your dad would still have this day. Hey, this what's it called? Is this one thing that brings down another thing? At this point, Li Jianhong looked at the person lying on the bed and snorted, look at how failed you are in front of your father. Now Mo Bao was completely satisfied. Let's threaten him just now. Li Jianhong did not stay here for a long time, but left after a while. After the others left, the father and son were left looking at each other again. Want to change your father? Li Baikan still had a smile on his face. But it seems unusual and a bit permeable. But even so, Mo Bao didn't panic at all. Is it okay? This is it okay really made Li Baikan so angry that his liver ached. He immediately pushed Mo Bao away and said, are you okay? You brat, you still ask if it's okay? I'll tell you, give it to me as soon as possible, get rid of this idea. In this life, you only have one father, and that is me. If you continue to say such nonsense, you will be the only one who will be unlucky. Why can't I change? If I hadn't seen this little guy who was only 1 year old, I would have been afraid of breaking this little guy. Now Li Baikan wants to beat this little guy hard and spread his ass. At night, when Sunian came back and heard what Mo Bao did, he kept laughing. Laughed until tears came out. Hence even more speechless. But even though I was speechless, my heart did not stop. Ha ha ha, I really regret it. I regret why I didn't stay at home. If I had stayed at home, I would have seen Li Baikan look deflated. However, Li Baikan's face looks very bad now. Then Li Baikan's face must have smelled even worse at that time, especially smelly. Mo Bao felt a little proud when he saw his mother looking so happy. After all, he was able to make his mother laugh like this. Are you still very proud? At this moment, Li Baikan's suspicious voice sounded. After Mo Bao heard this voice, he immediately threw himself into Sunian's arms. And he didn't believe that his father had the courage to deal with him in front of his mother. As expected, when Sunian saw Li Baikan like this, he immediately advised him, okay, Baikan, how old is Mo Bao? How can you argue with Mo Bao? This is not a matter of carelessness. The key is that some things need to be taught well. If it is not taught well, then Mo Bao doesn't know what will happen. When Li Baikan said this seriously, Sunian walked up to Li Baikan and kissed him. Okay, I've already done this, so don't be angry. Li Baikan raised his eyebrows slightly, then pulled Sunian directly into his arms. No, unless you kiss her again. End of this chapter.